A Tale of a Muslim Girl and Her Infidel Lover. A novel by Dr. A. Ahmed. This is an intriguing epic story which resonates with love, resilience, courage, and sacrifice. Before we dive into the tapestry of the story, I would like to inform the reader that this novel is narrated in 3 books. Book 2. The Muslim Apostate Girl and Her Christian Infidel Lover. Copyrights. All rights are reserved. No part of this book may be reproduced, stored in a retrieval system, or transmitted in any form or by any means without the prior written permission of the author, except by a reviewer, who may quote brief paragraphs for a review to be printed in a public newspaper, general magazine, school journal, or university article. This novel is a work of fiction, but the entire story is based on the real life of a Muslim girl in Sudan. All names, characters, places, and events are either the product of the author's imagination or used literary. Any resemblance to actual people, living or dead, events, or locales is merely coincidental. Chapter 34. The Trial of Hate Speech in Greece. If the Students' Conference was counted as a stigma on the bright name of Sudan, the first lecture of the Muslim apostate Dr. Infidel on violence in Islam was considered a defeat and disgrace for Muslims all over the world. The Muslim brothers and sisters, and the supporters of the Mohammedan Sunnah felt that their religious leaders deceived them and let them down. All local Greek newspapers put on their front pages the photo of the angry Egyptian Muslim university professor, when he raised his right hand and slapped the guest speaker, the Sudanese apostate girl Infidel, on her face until she fell on the stage in front of everybody among more than 2,000 guests. The Athenian newspapers had written scandalous articles under that criminal and shameful behavior of the highly educated Muslim professor. Besides that, all the writers considered the disgraceful action of such a distinguished professor, who lived many years in Athens and taught in one of its illustrious universities, a defeat for the Muslim scholars. It was not the right way to silence the voice of the woman who openly challenged the hostile teachings of Islam about violence in the Quran and the hadiths of the Prophet Muhammad, and which inspired jihadist terrorists to carry their cowardly attacks on innocent people. As a matter of fact, the professor's violent reaction had proven to thousands of Athenians that Islam is truly the religion of terror and terrorists. The university in which the professor was teaching had issued a public apology to the Sudanese speaker Dr. Infidel and invited her to come and speak in its auditorium. Because the Sudanese apostate Dr. Infidel had claimed to have been abused and persecuted when she was a Muslim girl in Sudan, the university requested her to speak on the status of women in Islam. In the public apology, the university considered the Egyptian professor was no more qualified intellectual scholar to teach in its Department of Religious Studies. In the meantime, a group of Muslim intellectuals had condemned the behavior of the Muslim professor, but accused the Sudanese apostate girl of delivering a hate speech against Islam and Muslims. They threatened to take her to court if she did not agree to issue a public apology to Muslims of Athens. They claimed that she used unreliable Islamic sources. Additionally, they argued that all the hadiths she quoted in her speech were not authentic sayings of the Prophet Muhammad. They also said Muhammad and his followers had never attacked or forced anyone to accept Islam by the sword. Furthermore, they argued that all those quotations she mentioned were known as Israeliyat, which some Jewish scribes wrote and then interpolated in the early writings of Islam to destroy the pure and peaceful message of the Master of Creation, the Prophet Muhammad, who was sent by Allah as mercy to mankind. In the meantime, Dr. Infidel was interviewed by 2 popular newspapers regarding the demand of the Muslim intellectuals. She said she would not apologize until those Muslim intellectuals could prove she lied in her lecture or misquoted those authoritative Islamic sources. When the Muslim apostate girl Infidel refused to issue a public apology, the leaders of the Muslim intellectuals lodged a lawsuit against her to the Athenian police authority. Meanwhile, the Sudanese students' Muslim groups kicked out their current leaders and cancelled the remaining 2 scheduled lectures of the Muslim apostate girl Infidel with the apprehended Egyptian professor of religious studies. They called for an emergency meeting in which they kicked out their leaders and elected new ones. Those new leaders tried in vain to convince the Sudanese apostate Dr. Ibtihal to come for a new debate. The leaders said they could choose one among themselves to challenge her in an open debate on any topic in Islam. The debate would be without a specific topic. It could be just a dialogue between her and a highly qualified Sudanese student on Islam. The Muslim apostate Dr. Ibtihal said to them, they were neither religiously qualified nor morally capable to debate her. Her daring reply was considered to be an insult to them. They threatened to take revenge on her if she refused to come for their debate. Dr. Ibtihal informed the Athenian police and showed them the threatening letter they had sent to her through her apartment's address. The Greek police made some arrests among those Muslim student terrorists. The police authority perceived that the life of the Sudanese Muslim apostate woman Ibtihal Taha al-Amin was in danger. Therefore, they had moved her to an unknown location and refused to disclose her whereabouts to any media people. Despite that, the Athenian police could not be able to hide the Sudanese apostate girl Ibtihal Taha al-Amin from the law. The criminal court informed her that she was required to appear before the magistrate regarding some allegations concerning the controversial speech that she delivered in the Sudanese Students' Club. For that reason, the accused Sudanese woman Ibtihal sent a letter of request to the United Nations office in Athens and asked them to appoint a lawyer for her defense and cover his fees. The UN office refused to accept her request for legal aid in such a controversial and provocative speech she delivered in a public place that had only Muslim guests. Nonetheless, the Legal Research and Resource Center for Human Rights in Athens agreed to represent her in court and appointed a lawyer for her defense. On the trial day, the lawyer of the Muslim intellectuals group tried to convince the court that the Sudanese woman Ibtihal's speech was full of hate toward Islam and Muslims. His first argument was that Muslims today don't go for jihad or force anyone to accept their religion. This argument was refuted by the lawyer of Dr. Ibtihal on the ground that she did not mention anything like that in her speech. She just referred to the bloody history of the Islamic invasions and showed that those ruthless atrocities and horrific massacres were justified and authorized by the teachings of the Quran and the hadiths of the Prophet Muhammad. To prove her point, she had supplied substantial evidence from the main religious texts of Islam, the Quran and the hadiths of the Prophet Muhammad. His second argument was that Muslims today live peacefully side by side with their Jewish and Christian neighbors. This argument likewise was refuted because it had nothing to do with the speech. The third argument of the lawyer was to try to prove that the Sudanese woman Ibtihal used unreliable Islamic books. Her lawyer asked him to give his criteria for deciding which Islamic book was authentic and which one was unreliable. The lawyer could not provide any criterion or tell who had the right to decide on the authenticity of those reliable religious books of Islam. The last allegation of the male Muslim lawyer was to try to prove to the court that those quotations she mentioned in her lecture were considered by Muslim scholars to have been added later by some enemies of Islam. The lawyer of Ibtihal asked him to provide his evidence that the enemies of Islam added those quotations. Moreover, the lawyer of the defendant Dr. Ibtihal said to him if the Muslim scholars discovered that those quotations were added by the enemies of Islam, then why they did not erase them from those authentic Islamic books. When the Muslim lawyer had failed to prove any of the allegations against the Sudanese speaker, the criminal court of Athens had dropped the charge of hate speech from the Muslim apostate girl Ibtihal Taha al-Amin and dismissed the case. Chapter 35. The first speech of Ibtihal on women in Islam at the University of Athens. Shortly after the trial of hate speech was over, the Sudanese apostate girl Dr. Ibtihal received an official invitation from the University of Athens and requested to deliver a couple of speeches to the professors and students on the teachings of Islam about women. The speeches will be delivered on 2 consecutive days. The letter of the university stated that no one will be allowed to bother her with any questions. Anyone wants to respond to her speeches, he can do so through writing or speaking somewhere outside of the university. She also will not be required to respond to those writings and speeches. The invitation stated further that she will be granted full protection by the police and the university security. Dr. Ibtihal loved the invitation, but she is worried about the consequences. Even so, she could not resist the temptation of speaking in the most prestigious university in Greece. Therefore, she gladly accepted the invitation and promised to speak on the issues of women in Islam for 2 days. The university auditorium can house up to 5,000 guests. On the first day, when the Sudanese apostate girl Ibtihal delivered her remarkable first speech, many people were denied admission because all seats were occupied. The security men refused to allow anyone to enter the auditorium and stand on his feet. This time, Dr. Ibtihal began her speech by briefly talking about her tragedy as a former Muslim woman. She explained how the fear of disgracing the honor of her Muslim father had haunted her for so long and altered the course of her life. How her Sudanese father controlled her and forced her to marry her cousin Tariq because he wouldn't trust her to live by herself as a single Muslim girl in another city. The fear of her father was based on the teaching of Islam, which said that the woman cannot be trusted because she has no control over her sexual desire. In this regard, the Islamic heritage teaches that the woman is one of 4 things that cannot be trusted: the woman, the money, the sultan, and the time. To control the woman, Islam commands that she must be genitally mutilated when she is an underage child. According to the Prophet Muhammad, female genital mutilation is the preservation of honor for the woman and her family. Dr. Ibtihal said the greatest evil that Islam has done to a Muslim woman is female genital mutilation. As a medical doctor, she had witnessed many sad cases of little female children dying due to that inhumane and barbaric procedure. She promised to speak in the future about the many evils that are associated with that evil practice and prove it by quoting authentic hadiths that the Prophet Muhammad taught and encouraged female genital mutilation. Dr. Ibtihal also explained how the Islamic religious court had abused her because of her love affair with a Christian man and finally condemned her to death for her conversion from Islam to Christianity. While she was narrating her abuses and tragedies in Sudan, Dr. Ibtihal could see tears were falling on the cheeks of some guests who were sitting in the front row of seats. After she finished her brief narration about her past life, she began to speak about the teachings of Islam on women. I would like to divide my speeches about women in Islam into 2 headings, resumed the guest speaker Dr. Ibtihal in an exceptionally sweet feminine voice which was magnified by the loudspeakers of the huge auditorium. I will speak today on the teachings of Islam on women, and then tomorrow, I will speak about marriage in Islam. Although these 2 topics are interrelated and overlapped, still it would be useful if they are separated. When I speak tomorrow about marriage in Islam, if the time will permit me, I will touch on the married life of the Prophet Muhammad. I believe the lives of women in Islam are restricted and measured by the lives of the wives of the Prophet. If I cannot be able to cover these topics in 2 days, I will look for another opportunity in the future to do so. After all, I am not an expert professor on women in Islam. I don't know how to divide my time. I had never thought one day I would be standing in front of such a huge gathering of intellectual people and speak to them on a subject I am not specialized in. I am a medical doctor by profession. Somehow, the Sudanese students in Athens made me a public speaker. The audience clapped their hands when the Sudanese girl Dr. Ibtihal made those last remarks. Speaking about women in Islam requires one to look at the teachings of the Quran, as well as the teachings of the hadiths of the Prophet Muhammad. These 2 are inseparable, and they determine the life of each and every Muslim woman. Some Muslim feminists today are trying to separate the teachings of the Quran from the hadiths of the Prophet Muhammad, but their efforts had not yet borne fruits. The main sources of Islamic Sharia regarding women are the Quran and hadiths. By saying the hadiths are the main sources of the misogynistic teachings in Islam would not solve the problems of women. No Muslim scholar will agree that some teachings of the Prophet are anti to the women. All Muslim scholars throughout the history of Islam held the Quran and hadiths of the Prophet Muhammad as equally sacred teachings and the direct revelation of God. To make this point clearer, I would like to quote the words of the two religious scholars Hack and Newton. The authentic hadith is believed to be nothing short of revelation, for the Quran says of Muhammad, he does not speak out of low desires. He is not, but he is inspiration inspired by God. Surah Al-Najm 53, verses 3-4. The only difference between the Quran and the Hadith is that whereas the former was revealed directly through the angel Gabriel with the very letters that were embodied by Allah, the latter was revealed without letters and words. Hack and Newton, 1996, page 1. The Quran strongly endorses the authenticity of the Hadith and leaves Muslim men and women with no preference between the two. Whenever Allah and the Apostle have decided a matter, it is not for a faithful man or woman to follow a course of their choice. Surah Al-Ahzab 33, verse 36. The most abusive teaching of the Hadith about women can be found in one of the most authentic teachings of the Prophet Muhammad. The Hadith that I am about to quote defines the Muslim woman and puts her under the control of men forever. Allah's Apostle once said to a group of women, I have not seen anyone lesser in intelligence and religion than you. A cautious, sensible man can be led astray by some of you. The women asked, O Allah's Apostle, what is deficient in our intelligence and religion? He said, Is not the testimony of two women equal to the witness of one man? They replied in the affirmative. He said, This is the deficiency of your intelligence. Isn't it true that a woman can neither pray nor fast during her menses? The women replied in the affirmative. He said, This is the deficiency in your religion. Sahih Bukhari, Hadith number 301. The authenticity of the above hadith is beyond dispute. It is mentioned repeatedly in the most authentic two collections of Sahih al-Bukhari and Sahih Muslim. When al-Bukhari and Muslim both accepted a hadith, it is called mutafagun alayhi, which means agreed upon. Muslim scholars consider this the highest degree of authenticity. Hack and Newton, 1996, page 3. The Arabic phrase, al-nisa nagisatan aglayan wadeen, which means that women are deficient in intelligence and religion, is on the tip of the tongue of every Muslim. This statement is used by scholars as well as lay people to define women. The Prophet Muhammad said, The woman is like a rib, if you try to straighten her, she will break. So, if you want to get benefit from her, do so while she still has some crookedness. Sahih al-Bukhari, Volume 7, Hadith number 113. Women are not grateful to their husbands, and are ungrateful for the favors and the good deeds done to them. If you have always been good to one of them, and then she sees something in you, not of her liking, she will say, I have never received any good from you. Sahih al-Bukhari, Volume 1, Hadith number 28. The Prophet also said, when a woman comes, she comes in the form of a devil. Sahih Muslim, Hadith number 3240. Again he said, I have not left any fitna, or calamity, after me more detrimental to men than women. Sahih al-Bukhari, Volume 7, Hadith number 33. O women! You must give alms, as I have seen that the majority of the dwellers of hellfire were you women. Sahih al-Bukhari, Volume 1, Hadith number 301. Amongst the inmates of paradise, the women would form the minority. Sahih Muslim, Hadith number 660. He also said, Those who entrust their affairs to a woman will never know prosperity. Quoted by Fatima Mernisai, 1993, page number 49. Based on this hadith, the Sharia law in Muslim countries will not allow the woman to be a president, judge, lawyer, or religious leader such as imama. The woman is not allowed to lead men in prayer at all, even if they are underage. The Moroccan scholar Fatima Mernisai noted that some hadiths, prophetic tradition, originated from the book of al-Bukhari, which were told by the religious teachers hurt me. They state that the Prophet said, Dog, donkey, and woman would annul anyone's prayer whenever they pass ahead of them, break off between the praying man and Qibla. I was shocked to hear that sort of hadith, and never repeat it with the hope that silence would wipe away this hadith out of my mind. I asked, how come the Prophet said that sort of hadith which hurt me so much? How could the beloved Muhammad hurt a little girl who is in her growth, attempted to make him as pillar of her romantic dreams? Fatima Mernisai, 1991, page 82. The Quran stated, and call unto witness 2 witnesses, men, or if the 2 be not men, then 1 man and 2 women, such witnesses as you approve of, that if 1 woman errs the other woman will remind her. Surah Al-Baqarah 2, verse 282. This verse is counted as the most offensive and misogynistic verse in the Quran because it makes the woman be like half of a man. Because of this verse, the judge in a Sharia court may accept the witness of a male cleaner or security guard and reject the testimony of a female professor of the university or lawyer in the high court. Also, if a mother witnesses her own son murdered in front of her eyes, she cannot testify in court about the hideous crime because her witness is unacceptable as a woman. The woman's full covering through hijab, abaya, niqab, or burqa. The Quran commands, O Prophet, tell your wives and your daughters and the women of the believers to draw their cloaks close round them when they go out. That will be better, so that they may be recognized and not annoyed. Allah is ever forgiving, merciful. Surah Al-Ahzab 33, verse 59. The above verse and the following hadith caused a paradigm shift in the life of the Muslim woman. The above verse and hadith deprived the Muslim woman of all her rights and turned her into a shadowy character and non-existent entity. The Prophet Muhammad said, the woman is a wara. There is no definition so widely used and accepted among Muslims for defining the woman than the woman is a wara. The term awara is defined in the Encyclopedia of Islam as the external genitals, especially of the female. Hack and Newton, 1996, page 5. The word awara is derived from the noun, nakedness. Simply put, the woman is from head to foot is a mere vagina. Therefore, she has to be fully and completely covered from head to foot by a hijab, abaya, niqab, or burqa. To ensure the safety of the Muslim society, the Sharia law must force this vagina to be fully cloaked by hijab or niqab, and concealed, and also imprisoned inside the 4 corners of her house. In another hadith, Al-Tirmizi reported that the Prophet said, the woman's voice is also an awara. Accordingly, it is not enough to shroud and veil the woman's entire body, head, and face by hijab and niqab or burqa, but also to forbid her from speaking in public because her voice is awara or private parts and hence causes great danger to the pious Muslim men. The Prophet also said, when the woman goes outside the house, the devil takes charge of her. Al-Tirmizi, Volume 2, Hadith number 65. This hadith says that whenever the woman goes out of her house, she will be possessed by demons. Therefore, she is dangerous to society, and hence she is supposed to be confined inside her house. Furthermore, the beloved wife of Muhammad, Aisha said, the Prophet's hand never touched or shook hands with women other than his wives and daughters. Based on this hadith, the Sharia law prohibits greeting women by shaking their hands. In Kitab Adab al-Nikah, the Prophet said, 3 persons if you esteem them, they will dishonor you, and if you dishonor them, they will esteem you, the woman, the servant, and the Nabatiyah. Al-Tirmizi, Hadith number 51. There are 3 persons whose prayer will not be accepted, nor their virtues are taken above: the runaway slave until he returns back to his master, the woman with whom her husband is dissatisfied, and the drunkard until he becomes sober. Mishkat al-Masabi, English translation, Book 1, Hadith number 74. The Prophet of Allah said, when a man calls his wife to satisfy his sexual desire, let her come to him though she is occupied at the oven. Mishkat al-Masabi, Book 1, Hadith number 61. The Messenger of Allah said, whenever a man calls his wife to his bed, and she refuses, and then he passes the night in an angry mood, the angels curse her till she gets up at dawn. Sahih al-Bukhari, Volume 7, Hadith number 121. The Prophet said, had I ordered anybody to prostrate before anyone, I would have ordered women to prostrate before their husbands on account of men's rights over the women ordained by Allah. Mishkat al-Masabi, Hadith number 70. This hadith is reported jointly by Abu Dawud, Ahmed, al-Tirmizi, Ibn Majah, and Ibn Hibban. The Quran permits woman's beating. Righteous women are therefore obedient. And those you fear may be nashis or rebellious, admonish them, banish them to their couches, and then beat them. Surah Al-Nisa 4, verse 34. This verse of the Quran gives the husband the right to beat his wife if she disobeys him. It also allows the father to beat his rebellious daughter, and the brother to chastise his disobedient sister. Although the verse doesn't give the reason for beating except disobedience, some Muslim scholars of Al-Azhar Al-Sharif University gave out 5 reasons. According to them, the beating of the wife is allowed in 5 cases. 1. When she does not wear clothes or jewelry wanted by the husband. 2. When she is called for sexual intercourse and she refuses without any lawful excuse. 3. When she is ordered to take a bath to clean herself from impurities for prayer and she refuses. 4. When she goes out of her house without the permission of her husband. 5. When she allows a man inside her house in the absence of her husband. Aisha, the beloved wife of the Prophet, admitted that one day Muhammad got angry with her and struck her on her chest until it caused pain. She said, "He struck me on the chest which caused me pain," and then he said, "Did you think that Allah and His Apostle would deal unjustly?" Sahih Muslim, Book 4, Hadith number 2127. Wife's rape. According to Sharia law, there is no such thing as the rape of the wife by her husband in Islam. The husband has been given an absolute right to rape his wife if she refuses to allow him to have sex with her, no matter when, how, or how many times. It was narrated that Abdullah ibn Abi Aufa, may Allah be pleased with him, said, "The Messenger of Allah, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, said, by the one in whose hand is the soul of Muhammad, no woman can fulfill her duty towards God until she fulfills her duty towards her husband. If he asks her for sexual intimacy, even if she is on her camel saddle, she should not refuse." Narrated by Ibn Majah, Hadith number 1853. It is classed as Sahih or authentic Hadith by Al-Albani in Sahih al-Targhib, page number 1938. The Malaysian scholar, Perak Mufti Tan Sri Harusani Zakaria, said that men can always have sexual intercourse with their wives even if the latter do not agree, saying that a Muslim woman has no right to reject her husband's sexual demand. Even the Prophet says even when they're riding on the back of the moving camel, when the husband asks her, she must give. He then added, "So, there's no such thing as rape in marriage. This is made by European people, why should we follow?" He told this to the Malay Mail Online when they contacted him, as he cited the above hadith of the Prophet Muhammad. "Ladies and gentlemen," said the Sudanese Dr. Ibtihal after speaking for over an hour about women in Islam, "I would like to end my first speech on the teachings of Islam about women here. As I promised, tomorrow I will speak on the teachings of the Quran and the hadiths about marriage. I shall make polygamy my main focus. Once again, I would like to thank the Department of Religious Studies in this prestigious university for giving me the honor of speaking to the professors and students in this great place of learning." Chapter 36. The second speech of Ibtihal on women in Islam at the University of Athens. Ladies and gentlemen, thus began the beautiful Muslim apostate girl Ibtihal her second speech in a sexy feminine voice. Yesterday, I had spoken in general on the teachings of the Quran and the hadiths of the Prophet of Islam about women. Today, I would like to speak about the effects those teachings are exercising on Muslim women's lives. I am going to refer to marriage in general and concentrate on polygamy. For nothing is more criticized in Islam than the practice of polygamy. Critics pointed out many reasons to show that women in Muslim societies are treated as secondary citizens with no equal rights to men. However, critics singled out polygamy as evidence of the oppression of women in Islam. For that reason, in our modern day, scholars are extensively exploring the place of women in Islam and made polygamy the focus of their research. Marriage is defined as a permanent, immediate, and an unconditional civil contract between two persons of opposite sexes for mutual enjoyment and procreation of children. Varma, 1988, page number 56. As we shall see soon, this definition doesn't apply to the concept of marriage in Islam. The two concerned persons who sign the marriage contract in Muslim countries are not necessarily the husband and the wife. According to the Sharia schools, a woman is utterly incompetent to enter into a marriage contract either herself or for another woman, such as her daughter or sister, even though her guardian might authorize her to do so. A father can contract the marriage of his virgin daughter without asking her consent, whatever her age. Varma, 1988, page 24. There is no specific minimum age limitation in marriage in Islam. This is because the Prophet Muhammad married Aisha at the age of 6 and had sex with her when she was 9 years old. The Quran also allows the girl to get married before she reaches the age of having her menses, Surah Al-Talaq 65, verse 4. There are many types of marriages in Islam. 1. Monogamous marriage, a lawful relationship between one man and one woman. 2. Polygamous marriage, a lawful relationship between one man and more than one woman, not to exceed 4 wives at a time. 3. Mutta or enjoyment marriage, a temporary lawful relationship between a man and a woman. The relation could be 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 days, a month, etc. The enjoyment marriage doesn't require a judge or witnesses. The man says to the woman, "I marry you myself," and she says to him, "I marry you myself." This kind of marriage differs from ordinary marriage because it does not aim at a continuous married life, but the sexual enjoyment in a lawful way. It was permitted by the Prophet but abolished by the second Caliph, Omar ibn al-Khattab. Since this kind of marriage is permitted by the Quran, in Surah Al-Nisa 4, verse 24, the Caliph Omar had no legal right to abolish it. According to Sharia law, no one has the right to abrogate any verse from the Quran after the death of the Prophet. Enjoyment marriage is unlawful in Sunni Islam but practiced until today by Shiite Islam. In Iran, it is estimated that over 70% of temporary wives became prostitutes. Wood Small, 1983, page 119. 4. Al-Masyar marriage. Al-Masyar marriage institution in Islam, allowing for a lesser form of relationship between man and woman than normal marriage. Al-Masyar is an official relationship between man and woman but does neither involve that the two stay together, nor that the man is economically responsible. It allows the man to have another wife in addition to his wife or wives. The Masyar wife is expected to live with her parents, and her husband can visit her according to a predetermined schedule. Al-Masyar is practiced in Saudi Arabia and Egypt for years. The Egyptian Sunni Imam Sheikh Mohammed Sayed Tantawi, who was the former Mufti of Egypt, officially legalized it in February 1999, and have also been defending the arrangement of Al-Masyar. Although Islam recognizes the above 4 forms of marriage, still it acknowledges and permits the Muslim men to practice sex with women who are either underage children or slaves. Slavery is not abolished in Islam until today. 5. Child marriage. Islam allows men to marry and have sex with underage girls. The Prophet wrote the marriage contract with Aisha while she was 6 years old and consummated his marriage with her when she was 9 years old, and she remained with him for 9 years till his death. Sahih al-Bukhari, Book 62, Hadith number 89. The Quran also authorizes and encourages child marriage of underage girls. Such of your women as have passed the age of monthly courses, for them the prescribed period, if ye have any doubts, is 3 months, and for those who have not yet reached the age of having their courses, it is the same for those who carry life within their wombs, their period is until they deliver their burdens, and for those who fear Allah, He will make their path easy. Surah Al-Talaq 65, verse 4. The renowned Quranic commentator Ibn Kathir explained the above verse as follows: there are 3 kinds of women. 1. Those who are grown old and their periods ceased. 2. Those small girls who do not yet have their periods because they are underage. The old women and the underage girls who have not yet menstruated, if they get married and divorced, must stay 3 months before they can remarry. 3. The third type of women is those who still have their periods or are pregnant. Those women, if they get married and divorced, must stay 3 months and 10 days before they remarry. This is child abuse or rape of underage girls practiced by Muslims under the cover-up of marriage, which is supported by the Quran and the example of Muhammad with his underage child bride Aisha. 6. Sex with slaves. A lawful sexual relationship between the master and his slaves without marrying them. The Quran stated, "And if ye fear that ye will not deal fairly of the orphans, marry of the women who seem good to you, 2 or 3 or 4, and if ye fear that ye cannot do justice to so many, then one only, or the captives that your right hands possess." Surah Al-Nisa 4, verse 3. This verse allows the Muslim men to have sex with their slaves and captive women without the need of marrying them. Therefore, it is a kind of lawful rape or halal adultery in Islam. There is no limit to the number of slaves. One of the companions of the Prophet Muhammad, a man by the name of Abdul Rahman ibn Awf, had 90 slaves, and he slept with them all without marrying any one of them. The fourth caliph, Ali ibn Abi Talib, had 19 slaves, and he had sex with them without marrying any one of them. Abu Sa'id al-Khudri said, "The Apostle of Allah, may peace be upon him, sent a military expedition to Autas on the occasion of the Battle of Hunain. They met their enemy and fought with them. They defeated them and took them captives. Some of the companions of the Apostle of Allah were reluctant to have intercourse with the captives in the presence of their husbands who were unbelievers. So Allah, the Exalted, sent down the Quranic verse, "And all married women are forbidden unto you save those captives whom your right hands possessed." Surah 4, verse 24. Sunan Abu Dawud, page 2150. 7. Al-Zawaj al-Urfi, or traditional marriage. This is the 7th type of halal sex or lawful marriage in Islam. It is a kind of Islamic marriage, which is socially unrecognized and unaccepted by Muslim families. It is like the Shiite mutta or enjoyment marriage, where the boy and the girl marry themselves to each other without the knowledge of their families and without mazun or judge, witnesses, and any official document. In Khartoum, the capital city of my country Sudan, every year many Muslim girls become pregnant through al-Zawaj al-Urfi, and then deliver their babies and throw them in the garbage containers, and those abandoned babies would be eaten up by stray dogs. Sometimes people may rescue those unfortunate babies before they die. Many times, those unwanted babies lost some of their limbs, such as a hand or leg, which had been eaten by stray dogs. The recent increase in the number of those castaway babies forced the Islamic government of Sudan to open the Dar al-Migoma Center to take care of those unwanted babies. However, no one is allowed to adopt one of those children and give him or her his name, because adoption is illegal in Islam. To justify his scandalous marriage with his daughter-in-law, Prophet Muhammad forbade the noble social institution of adoption and deprived millions of orphaned or illegitimate Muslim children of being adopted by other families. Without this option of adoption, thousands of Muslim girls every year either killed themselves for fear of bringing disgrace to their families or got slain in honor killings by their families when they become pregnant out of those unaccepted marriages. 8. The marriage of the martyr. The last type of marriage in Islam is the marriage of the Muslim martyr with the 72 virgins in paradise, which is called Aris al-Shahid. The Quran promises this kind of marriage. Even so it will be. And we shall wed them unto fair ones with wide, lovely eyes. Surah Al-Dukhan 44, verse 54. Reclining on ranged couches. And we wed them unto fair ones with wide, lovely eyes. Surah Al-Tur 52, verse 20. Therein maidens resting their glances, untouched before them by any man or jinn, lovely as rubies, beautiful as coral. Surah Al-Rahman 55, verses 56 to 58. The fair, the beautiful ones, Al-Huwariyat. With large eyeballs, kept close in their pavilions. Surah Al-Ruman 55, verse 72. And maidens of swelling breasts, kawab, like of age, and a cup overflowing, Surah Al-Naba 78, verse 33. Kawab means the women who have breasts that are swelling and firm, not sagging. Cited from Hack and Newton, 1996, page 16. The Prophet said, "A woman does not give trouble to her husband in this world, but his wife of the pure-eyed ones Ahurus does say to her, 'Do not give him trouble. May Allah destroy you. He is only a passing guest with you, and it is near that he will soon leave you to come to us.'" Mishkat al-Masabi, Book 1, Hadith number 62. The Messenger of Allah said, "Upon him blessings and peace, he, the martyr, shall be coupled with 72 spouses from the wide-eyed maidens of paradise," reported by Ahmed and Al-Tirmizi. The Prophet was asked, "Do we have sex in paradise?" He answered, "Yes, by him who holds my soul in his hand, and it will be done daman." This word daman means the intercourse with the Virgin of Paradise, which will be done in such strong shove and disturbance. And when it is finished, she will return pure and virgin again. Quoting Hack and Newton, 1996, page 17. It was reported in the Hadith of Al-Mikdam ibn Madi Karb that the Prophet, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, said, "The martyr in jihad will receive from Allah 7 blessings. 1. He is forgiven from the moment his blood is first to shed. 2. He will be shown his place in paradise. 3. He will be spared the trial and suffering of the grave. 4. And he will be secure on the day of the greatest terror, the day of judgment. 5. There will be placed on his head a crown of dignity, 1 ruby, of which is better than this world and all that is in it. 6. He will be married to 72 of Al-Hur Al-Ayn, the virgins of paradise. And 7. He will be permitted to intercede for 70 of his relatives." Narrated by Al-Tirmizi, who said it is a Hasan hadith, which means good. Also narrated by Ibn Majah in Al-Sunan, by Ahmed, by Abdul Razak in Al-Muzanaf, by Al-Tabarani in Al-Tabgat Al-Kobra, and by Sa'id ibn Mansur in Al-Sunnah. The concept of the 72 virgins of paradise is a deceptive way that the Prophet Muhammad invented to spread Islam by the sword all over the world. Every day many Muslim men blow their bodies into bits and pieces, believing that they are going to end up in paradise with those 72 eternal virgins and rivers of wine. In conclusion, out of the 8 ways that a Muslim man is permitted to have sex with women, only the first one can be called a lawful marriage. The remaining 7 are nothing except disguised ways of fornication, rape, child abuse, adultery, prostitution, and deception. As I had promised yesterday, in my speech today, I would focus on polygamy in Islam. Quranic authority for polygamy, "And if ye fear that ye will not deal fairly of the orphans, marry of the women who seem good to you, 2 or 3 or 4, and if ye fear that ye cannot do justice to so many, then 1 only, or the captives that your right hands possess." Surah Al-Nisa 4, verse 3. This verse does not only allow a Muslim man to marry up to 4 wives at the same time, but also allows him without condition or limit to have as many number of slaves as he wishes. The Muslim man is allowed to have sex with his slave without marrying her. As we will see soon, the Prophet Muhammad had sex without marriage with his 2 slaves, Maria the Coptic Christian and Rayhana bint Shamun, a Jewish girl. According to the well-known Muslim scholar Abu Hamid al-Ghazali, polygamy is necessary because it satisfies human instinct. Fatima Mernisai, 1987, page 47. The Moroccan scholar Fatima Mernisai, commenting on the words of al-Ghazali, stated that this kind of argument reveals to us Muslim theory of sexuality, for the man burdened with a strong sexual desire, and for whom 1 woman is not enough to guarantee his chastity for a married person being abstention from fornication, it is recommended that he adds to the first wife others. The total should not exceed 4. Mernisai, 1987, page 47. Commenting on Surah Al-Baqarah 2, verse 223, Fatima Mernisai argued that Islam allows the Muslim man to have anal sex with his wife against her wish. The verse was revealed when an Ansari wife had refused to allow her husband to have anal sex with her. Mernisai, 1993, page 145. The woman went to Salamah, wife of the Prophet and women's representative, and requested her to bring the matter before Muhammad. When Salamah inquired from the Prophet, a verse descended from heaven, which says, "Your women are a field for you to cultivate, so approach your plantation in any position you wish." Surah Al-Baqarah 2, verse 223. This verse gives men the right to choose the sexual position they want, and if they desire, they are permitted to sodomize their wives against their wishes. Fatima Mernisai 1993, page 146. Polygamy in Islam is associated with the belief that having many women are a source of sexual enjoyment for men. The history of Islam revealed that women were used by their male partners for the purpose of entertainment. Examples for this are stories of the Arabian Nights or 1001 Night, Kitab al-Aghani of Abi al-Faraj al-Isfahani, the women Jawari, pleasure slaves, for the Abbasid caliphs, and the 72 virgins of paradise. Creatures in paradise are supposed to be offered as rewards to male believers. They are described in the Quran as beautiful, eternally virgin, and eternally loving. Mernisai, 1988, page 71. The descriptions of the houri girls in the Quran have a great effect on the relationship between men and women in Islam. Men look at their wives as inferior to the virgins in beauty, loyalty, and pleasure providing. The houri girls are not human beings, but special creatures that God created for men's enjoyment and pleasure in paradise. The Quran describes the physical and sexual beauties and attraction of those heavenly creatures in remarkable ways. Lo! Those men who kept their duty will be in a place secure amid gardens and water springs, attired in silk and silk embroidery, facing one another. Even so it will be. And we shall wed them unto virgins, fair ones with wide, lovely eyes. Surah Al-Dukhan 44, verses 51 to 54. Therein virgin girls resting their glances, untouched before them by any man or jinn. Lovely as rubies, beautiful as coral. Surah Al-Rahman 55, verses 56 to 58. When I was in grade 12, I asked my religious female teacher, why did Allah create the beautiful virgins in paradise when there are women on earth? She told me because the Prophet Muhammad predicted that most of the Muslim women on earth would go to hell. She quoted to me the following hadith. The Prophet said to a group of women, "O women, give alms, as I have seen that the majority of the dwellers of hellfire are you." Sahih al-Bukhari, Volume 1, Hadith number 301. Besides the legal authorization of polygamy by Sharia, there are other social factors that encourage this practice in Muslim societies. The most important of these factors are honor, barrenness, and circumcision of Muslim girls. Fatima Mernisai argued, the concepts of honor and virginity locate the prestige of a man between the legs of a woman. Mernisai, 1988, page 34. When the bride fails to bleed because of penetration to break her hymen, is considered as a failure of the social test, then she is taken back by the groom and his family to her own family. Yamani, 1981, page 149. In some cases, the husband may keep his wife, but marry another one to meet the virginity test. In that case, the first wife would be treated inferior to the second wife. Before I end my second speech, I would like to talk briefly about one of the most serious problems that Muslim women face from childhood, which is female genital mutilation or circumcision of small girls in Islam. Circumcision of girls or female genital mutilation is practiced in most Arab countries and more in countries like Sudan, Egypt, Iraq, Eritrea, Ethiopia, and Somalia. The practice is recommended by the Prophet and hence considered a sunnah. The main reason for the circumcision of girls, according to the jurists, is to restrain lust or the sex drive. For the girl nowadays is exposed to all kinds of temptations, they argue, which leads to depravity and adultery in society. According to the Prophet's statement, circumcision is a law for men and a preservation of honor for women. It is also believed by Muhammad that circumcision makes a woman more enjoyable, provided that it is practiced moderately. Amatiyah al-Ansarite narrated that a woman used to circumcise in Medina, and the Prophet said to her, "Do not overdo it, because this makes a woman more favorable and it is more agreeable for the husband." Sahih al-Bukhari, Sahih Muslim, quoted in Tahara 49, Shaltat Khitan al-Antha, in Liwa al-Islam, 1951, page number 55. Female circumcision involves the removal of the sealing of the labia majora and the labia minora together after the entire clitoris has been removed. Lois, 1985, page 15. The problem that results from circumcision is that the woman is no more capable of normal sexual intercourse and childbearing. And no longer able to gratify her spouse's appetite, she is cast out for a younger and healthier wife. Lois, 1985, page 117. An expert in this topic said, "Female genital mutilation means passing the death sentence on the pussy of the Muslim girl. The circumcised girl will feel so much pain during sex and therefore she will not enjoy sex or experience clitoris orgasm. Simply put, because she has a dead pussy." In conclusion, I would like to return to the topic of polygamy. Some modern Muslim writers like Dr. Nawal al-Sadawi, Fatima Mernisai, and Ghazim Amin discouraged the practice of polygamy. As understood by Fatima Mernisai, polygamy is a way for a man to humiliate the woman as a sexual being. Mernisai, page 48. It is commonly believed in Morocco's country that the wife could be humiliated by marrying another woman beside her. The Sudanese people share the same opinion, for they believe that the best way to chastise a woman is to marry another woman with her. In Sudan and Egypt, the second wife is called al-Dara, which means an evildoer. Ladies and gentlemen, I do not think I will be able to cover such a huge topic in one evening speech. I promised you that I would talk about the married life of the Prophet Muhammad. But I have already reached half an hour beyond my scheduled time. So I hope everyone understands this problem and forgives me for not fulfilling my promise. Once again, I am thankful to the Department of Religious Studies and look forward to another opportunity to speak in this prestigious university. The guests stood on their feet and began to clap their hands and voice out words of appreciation and thanks to the Sudanese apostate girl Dr. Ibtihal. They did not stop cheering until she left the auditorium.